The prince who chose love over the crown. In a land divided by sunrise and sunset, there were two great kingdoms. One was in the east, and the other was in the west. The eastern kingdom was ruled by a wise king and a gentle queen. They had only one son, named Prince Solomon. Solomon was not like other princes. He did not love noise, pride, or power. He loved wisdom, truth, and real love. From a young age, Solomon told his father one thing again and again. "Father, I will not marry because of beauty or position. I want a wife with a good heart." The king listened but worried. Time was moving. Solomon was now a grown man, and the kingdom needed a future queen. In the Western Kingdom, there lived another king and queen. They had 4 daughters, all sisters, all very different. Their names were Sandra, Hannah, Esther, Joy. When the king of the East heard about the 4 daughters, he sent a message to the king of the West. "I am sending my son to choose a wife among your daughters." The palace of the West became busy. Servants cleaned, guards stood tall, and the 4 sisters prepared themselves. Everyone expected a royal prince, dressed in gold, riding horses with many guards. But Solomon was wise. He knew something most people did not know. People behave differently when they think no one important is watching. So Solomon made a secret decision. He went to the Western Kingdom not as a prince, but as a houseboy. He wore dirty clothes. He carried water. He cleaned rooms. He washed plates. No one knew who he really was. Not even the king of the West. Not even the queen. Not even the 4 daughters. Solomon lived inside the palace. Every day, he worked quietly. Every day, he observed. Sandra, the hidden darkness. Sandra was the first daughter. She was beautiful, loud, and proud. Everyone thought she was perfect, but Solomon saw what others did not see. Late at night, when the palace was silent, Sandra would sneak into a small room behind the garden. Solomon once followed quietly while carrying cleaning tools. That night, he saw Sandra using hard drugs, shaking, laughing, crying, losing control. She did not know Solomon was watching. She did not know the house boy saw her broken soul. Solomon felt pain in his heart. "Beauty without peace is danger," he whispered to himself. Sandra never treated Solomon kindly. She shouted at him, insulted him, and once said, "You are just a servant. Know your place." Esther, the sweet lie. Esther was the second daughter. She was charming and soft-spoken. Many thought she was pure, but Solomon noticed something strange. Every day, Esther would disappear to a corner of the palace, talking quietly on her phone. One afternoon, Solomon was cleaning behind the curtains. He heard everything. Esther laughed and said, "Don't worry. I don't like the prince. Even if he chooses me, I will still see you. My room is private." The man on the phone laughed. Esther continued, "Marriage does not stop love." Solomon froze. His hand shook. She turned around and almost saw him, but she thought he was just a servant and walked away. Esther flirted with guards, visitors, and strangers. She smiled sweetly, but her heart was divided. Solomon lowered his head. "A heart that belongs to many cannot belong to me," he thought. Hannah was the third daughter. She dressed like a boy. She smoked openly. She hated control. She hated rules. Hannah was gay, and she did not hide it. She once said loudly, "I don't care if the prince chooses me or not. I don't need a man." She treated Solomon like air. Not rude, not kind. Just ignored him. One day, she said to him, "Don't tell me what to do. I answer to no one." Solomon respected her honesty, but knew she was not his path. "Everyone deserves their truth," he said quietly. Joy, the silent light. Joy was the youngest. She was 17 years old, turning 18 the coming year. The other sisters called her ugly. They mocked her. They ignored her. She wore simple clothes. She spoke softly. She walked gently. No one believed any prince would choose her. But Joy noticed Solomon. When he was tired, she brought him water. When he was insulted, she defended him quietly. When he cleaned late at night, she helped him without being asked. One day she said, "Thank you for your hard work. You are human too." Solomon felt something break inside his chest. For the first time in many years, he felt seen. Joy did not know he was a prince. She just saw a man. The day came. The The palace of the Western Kingdom was filled that morning. Drums were beating. Trumpets were sounding. Servants were running up and down. The king and queen of the East had arrived. Everyone stood in a long line. The four sisters stood proudly, dressed in royal clothes. The king of the West smiled confidently. After greetings and gifts, the king of the West asked calmly, "Your Majesty, where is your son, the prince?" The king of the East frowned. "My son is already here. I sent him here weeks ago." Confusion filled the hall. The king of the West shook his head. "No prince arrived. Only a houseboy has been working in my palace for weeks." At that moment, the hall went silent. Slowly, Solomon stepped forward. He was wearing old, dirty servant clothes. His hands were rough. His eyes were tired. He knelt on the floor and bowed deeply. "Father, I am your son. I am Prince Solomon," he said to the king of the West. The queen screamed softly. Solomon, his father, the king of the East, stood up angrily. "Why are you dressed like this? Why would a prince live like a servant?" Solomon raised his head, tears already in his eyes. "Because I want to see truth, not performance. I want to know hearts, not faces." The palace erupted. Sandra started shaking. Esther went pale. Hannah crossed her arms. Joy stood frozen, her heart beating so loud she could hear it. The king of the West shouted, "This is impossible." Solomon looked at everyone and said calmly, "Because I wanted truth, not lies." The king of the West said, "Choose now, prince." Solomon stood and slowly walked through the palace. He stopped in front of Sandra. "You insulted me because you thought I was nothing." Sandra tried to speak, but no words came. He stopped in front of Esther. "You promised loyalty with your lips, but your heart belonged to another." Esther fell to her knees, crying. He stopped in front of Hannah. "You were honest, but your path is not mine." Then Solomon turned, and he walked to Joy. Joy's legs began to shake. Solomon knelt before her. "You gave me water when I was thirsty. You defended me when I was insulted. You loved me when I had no crown." Tears ran down his face. "I choose joy." The hall exploded with noise. The king of the West slammed his staff on the ground. "No." Everyone went silent again. The king continued, his voice shaking with anger and fear. "You may choose any of my daughters, but not Joy." Solomon stood up slowly. "Why?" The king of the West looked at Joy, then looked away. The queen of the West began to cry. Finally, the king spoke in a broken voice. "Because Joy is not fully of royal blood." Gasps filled the room. Joy turned to her parents in shock. The king continued, his voice heavy. "Joy is adopted." Joy felt the ground leave her feet. The queen of the West fell to the floor crying. "We found her as a baby during a war. We raised her as our own, but the law forbids her." Solomon's heart shattered. "Father," Solomon turned to the king of the East, "please." The king of the East's eyes were wet. "My son, the law of the kingdoms is older than me. If you marry her, the throne will be taken from you. The people will revolt. War will rise." Joy began to cry loudly. "Please don't lose everything because of me." Solomon grabbed her hands. "I would give up everything." Joy shook her head through tears. "If you love me, don't destroy yourself." She slowly removed her hand from his. The palace was silent except for crying. Joy was still on her knees, crying softly. Solomon stood in front of his father, his whole body shaking, but his voice was firm. He wiped his tears and said slowly, "Father, listen to me carefully." Everyone held their breath. "I came here as a servant and lived among these people. I slept on the floor. I ate leftovers. I was insulted and ignored." He turned and looked at Joy, and only one person saw me as human. He faced his father again. "If the law says I cannot marry Joy, then I will change the law." Gasps filled the palace. The king of the East stood up angrily. "Solomon, do you know what you are saying?" Solomon nodded, tears rolling down his face. "Yes, father, and if the law cannot be changed." His voice broke. "Then I will leave the kingdom. I will remove my crown. I will run away with Joy, and I will never return again." The queen of the East screamed softly. "My son." The king of the East froze. For the first time, he saw fear in his son's eyes. Not fear of losing the throne, but fear of losing love. Solomon continued, A kingdom without love is already destroyed. I would rather be a poor man with joy than a king without a heart. Joy cried louder, "Please don't lose your family because of me." Solomon knelt and held her hands. "Already found my family." The king of the east sat down slowly. Tears filled his eyes. After a long silence, he spoke in a broken voice. "I raised you to rule people, but you have taught me how to rule with a heart." He stood up and faced the palace. The law was made to protect people, not to destroy love. He turned to Joy. "From today, you are no longer an adopted child. You are my daughter." The palace erupted in tears. The king of the west fell to his throne, crying. The queen ran and hugged Joy tightly. Solomon collapsed in relief. "Thank you, father," Solomon said. The king raised Solomon up. "Go and marry the woman who loved you when you were nothing." Joy and Solomon embraced, crying, laughing, shaking. That day a law was changed. That day, love defeated tradition. Sometimes, love is not about choosing crown. It is about choosing courage. And when leaders choose love, the world becomes a better place. The end. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Drop your thoughts in the comment section if you love this story.